It's been a large 24 hours, to say the least. Blake Lively settled against the Wayfarer parties just before trial, and even though this was always possible, I don't think a lot of us who have been following deeply expected it in that moment, and then we keep learning more information around this. So my thoughts with what we know so far. Firstly, the joint statement that was put out by the lawyers. My first read of this as a whole was feeling a little bit, I guess, concerned, even though it's very neutral and ambiguous, and most settlement statements often are. That's that throughout this process, we've seen Blake brackets Ryan take nothing and turn it into something, whether it be leaving out the context of a comment about circumcision or someone's outfit, whether it be just a couple weeks ago having 10 of her 13 claims dismissed, including all sexual harassment claims, and her jumping on Instagram and saying she's grateful for the ruling. Wayfarer's approach in showing objective evidence that really can't be twisted has been so helpful to them. So when we see something maybe that's a bit more neutral, we worry, what are they going to do? How are they going to spin this next? But I think at the end of the day, one thing we've learned through this is they'll spin it no matter what. So when we unpack the statement, we can actually see it's very driven by Wayfarer and their style. It starts by recognising the bigger message which Justin wanted to all along about DV and survivors and that not being lost. It doesn't give any admissions of guilt. It actually states they remain firmly committed, suggesting they were always committed to workplace practices. I think it's interesting, this comment about recognising that Blake deserved to be heard. It's interesting to say in the settlement agreement, as it sort of suggests she said what she needs to. If she had more she wanted to speak to, she wouldn't be settling. She'd still be taking this to trial and speaking for women like she suggested. Even though it may not be satisfying to us, I still imagine there was a lot of compromise around that statement. When we think back to what wanted Jamie and Justin to put out in terms of taking the fall a while back, coming to this agreement is a huge suggestion of Blake brackets Ryan realising they need to step away. They've already lost, in my opinion. However, I guess another part of that concern in terms of wanting Justin to have this justice, even though we know he's won in the public opinion as a majority, there's still the opportunity that they have in their resources and control of mainstream media to maybe twist this for some people. And a lot of normies, like my brother, for example. When I say normie, I mean someone who has no real interest or investment in this case, wouldn't be following it, would only see headlines, but is also capable of discernment and open to learning new information if presented, just not really motivated to seek it out too much. And he said, well, what does this mean? Who won? So let's look at that. And again, for those who are following, I don't think it's too hard to unpack. Blake brought this lawsuit against Justin and Wayfarer parties and Tag to restore her reputation. It started with the New York Times article. Again, it was never meant to go this far, in my opinion. She's coming out of it not having saved her reputation. Blake brackets Ryan did not want to have her sexual harassment claims dismissed. They would have settled a lot earlier, because what's happened in this time is her reputation and brackets Ryan has taken a continuous hit. People have looked further and deeper into their past, into their patterns of behaviour. A lot of things have come out that I don't think were going to come out in that little period that they couldn't handle when they got backlash. Serious things, looking at you, brackets Ryan. And this has gone on for almost a year and a half. So this is not a win for them at all. Even though they will see Blake going to the Met Gala right after as a win, or they'll spin that as a win. It's not. It just shows you're still leaning back on your power. Now let's look at the timing of them settling. So initially, I was thinking it was due to some of the evidence that had just come out and it looking particularly bad for Blake lying in her deposition and Ryan being more involved than, well, some of us thought, but we didn't have clear evidence from a third party of that suggestion. Looking now that she was at the Met Gala the same day makes me think that this started to be planned or considered when her sexual harassment claims got dismissed. It tells me there was some scrambling because they could have settled earlier and that evidence maybe it was going to be unsealed anyway. But waiting right up to this moment was maybe looking to time it as a power move. So imagine there was some scrambling in the last couple of weeks. And even though I know it seems so insensitive to make this move, we feel so frustrated because of the different PR that has come out lately. Right after her claims being dismissed, all these articles about Blake's got more fight in her, she can't wait to take this to trial. Suddenly then an article that Ryan wants a settlement behind the scenes, and then they do settle. I think they might have been seeing what they could get away with in that stipulation order of bringing sexual harassment in anyway, but ultimately realised the best win for them at this point would be walking away rather than taking it further and involving all the people they already have, which is still a loss for them. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the article about Ryan pushing her to settle came out not too long ago. I also think it's another dirty move, brackets Ryan, in terms of throwing your wife under the bus to maybe see if you can save yourself and try pull off this reasonable card to your existing fan base that might not have seen the text. That's why, even though it's almost over, there's reason to continue talking about it for a little bit. And speaking of that, Brian Friedman did some of the rounds today, which was good to watch. And I thought there was a few things we could take away from it. I thought it was especially notable that he acknowledged content creators, and it feels like that came from them. And it shows they are still listening, because I think they'd know that some people maybe feel really disappointed and think about things like the content creators. Aren't you going to go into battle considering all the damage that's been done? I think that Justin and Jamie would have wanted to acknowledge, make sure that they were acknowledged. And that was spoken to in Brian Friedman saying, you know, it touched his heart seeing those out there supporting him. And then I saw something on Kirsty Floor as well, which I thought was a really good highlight, that someone was feeling really disappointed and how they'd seen this and really needing like this win and this hope for justice. And again, it may not look like this perfect sort of ending to a battle, and we might still be concerned about PR spins coming up. But I think when we think about what made us want to support Justin and Jamie and their families, it was so much of their values and their approach and seeing it being taken advantage of. We think what they've always wanted, what they've always aimed for, we could never expect a cutthroat ending, really. We could only allow the truth to tell the real story, which they've done a beautiful job at. If they were ever going to go sort of cutthroat, then they could have used, and I'm sure still have so much information, they could have fought as dirty in PR. They could have been guilty of what Blake was accusing them of, an actual smear, and trying to retaliate. But they never wanted that. They never wanted this. So I think there's some grace to take from that. So seeing Blake at the Met Gala might make us feel, she's trying to tell us, look, I haven't lost. She has lost. She's lost a lot. For her, brackets Ryan, reputation is absolutely everything, and they are not coming out on this with a win. They are not coming out with allies as strong. They have lost a lot. Taylor Swift is a lot. We'll see what happens with the wedding. But just not having her support through this time in general, that will always be considered when people reflect on this. It will always be considered that higher-ups in Sony spoke the way they did about their involvement. These were never individuals that were okay with having all the money in the world, a family, a healthy marriage, successful careers. That was still not enough for them. They needed to push more. They needed people to love them more, recognize them more. That's never going to happen again. It's never going to happen in the way that they aimed for, and they'll never be able to reach that again through this case. Even if they might still get the odd bit of work and superficial admiration, they'll know now really what happens when curtain is pulled back on who they are. They'll know that their admiration is built on their PR machine, and that's all they have left. And Justin has always been someone who hasn't needed this or wanted this. He's just wanted to make a difference, and he has. Brian Friedman as well also gave us a little nugget of something to look forward to, who knows how soon, in terms of Justin being able to tell his story and the restrictions of really telling your story just through a court trial and the ability to. And there's been some suggestions that there wasn't an NDA, even though that was some of our first thoughts. So that will be interesting, and maybe through this they've realised they can lean back into the faith of people who are supporting them. And through how this process, how much really in reality this has all backfired on Blake brackets Ryan, because their reputations are down. So many people now love Justin and want to support him and will run to his next project. So